Here's what's next on the Nice Guys on Business.
Well, again, I'm not an expert on all elements of leadership. I'm just an expert on leading people. And three things. One, have the courage to look in the mirror, the courage to challenge yourself day after day after day. It's hard. Have the humility to admit you can always improve. Because, as a coach, I can't help perfect people get better. Somebody's perfect, nothing I'm going to do about it. And then finally, have the discipline to do the hard work required to get better. Because, it doesn't happen by itself. It's just day after day after day work. The great leaders I met, they worked harder. Day after day, they kept trying to get better. Hubert Joly went over, turned around Best Buy. He didn't turn around in one day. He didn't give a motivational speech. It was day after day after day of focus on personal improvement, on corporate improvement. That's what you got to do.
So one day I'm caddying for the Dalai Lama, and I say, "Hey, Lama, how about a little something, for the effort?" And he says, "There won't be any money, but one day I will introduce you to the Nice Guys on Business." So I got that going for me, which is nice. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, welcome back, Nice Guy community. How would you feel if I told you in order to be successful, all you have to do is one thing, just one thing, and that thing would be saving you time, it would save you money, misunderstandings, lost opportunity? Well, today's guest, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, he shares how success is sometimes not about something that you do, but rather something that you've got to stop doing. A prolific writer, Wall Street Journal bestseller, educator, leadership expert, executive coach, an all-around nice guy. Of course, I added that last part because genuinely, at least in what I've seen in the last 27 seconds, Marshall truly is a nice guy. Marshall, that's the only canned part of this interview. Now we're about to get into the fun stuff. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much. Very happy to be here.
All right, Marshall, this is like one, my heart is racing because you're like one of the best gets that I have ever had on this show. And I say that genuinely from a position of, we've had some crappy guests on the show. No, I say this from a position of,
the bar is low.
Yeah, the bar is really low, so it can't be really hard. But I don't even know where to start with you. I saw your most recent post, I think it was on LinkedIn, where you say, "Hey, I'm giving it all away. I'm at a point in my life where I really do want to give it away." And that's why I coined you this as the nice guy. Where did the "I'm giving it away" perspective come from in your journey? Is it coming from your parents? Is it coming from your education? Where's it coming from?
I think it's coming from partly, I'm a Buddhist. And so I've read 400 books on Buddhism. I'm not a religious Buddhist. I'm a philosophical Buddhist. And, I thought about all the great teachers that impacted me in my life. Alan Mulally, former CEO Ford, was a great friend, but taught me many things. And Peter Drucker. And I admired these people so much. And they gave me everything. They didn't charge me any money. So I thought, that'd be a nice thing for me to do, just sort of in honor of them.
And what a wonderful gift it is to give to the world. And I loved how you tongue-in-cheek said, "Ask me any question that you want here on LinkedIn. If I don't think it's an appropriate question, I'll just ignore you."
And by the way, I want everybody to go to Marshall Goldsmith, my name, .ai. This is not publicly announced yet, so you heard it here first.
All right.
That's my new Marshall bot. I'm giving everything away on Marshall bot. You can ask questions, it'll answer it, and it's all free.
I love that. And you're so generous with your time and your wisdom also. I got to know because from a curiosity perspective, my dad, let's see, he was born in 1928. He passed away, I think it was 28 that he was born, but he passed away many years ago. I never had a chance to ask him some of the questions as an adult that has a business that would be able to ask my dad. But I want to know from your perspective, because I do see a lot of my dad in you and your principles and the way that you teach and the way that you lead, and I really love it. What's the journey look like from your view right now? If you were to look around and see all of the accomplishments that you've made, and I'm not asking you to toot your horn, I'm just asking you, tell me what does the view look like when you see others in the world of business and personal relationships trying to build and go through their journey?
Well, just a couple of thoughts. First, I had a lot of lucky breaks. I mean, I mentioned great mentors. I was young, just graduated from a PhD program at UCLA. I met Dr. Paul Hersey. And, I mean, I went to one of his programs. He let me come for free. And I sat in the back. I said, man, this guy's good. I want to be you when I grow up. And so what happened, I said, I'll sit in the back. I'll serve the coffee. Just let me sit there and learn. That was a good idea. I did. And then one day he got double booked. He said, can you do what I do? I said, I don't know. He said, I'll pay $1,000 for a day. I was making $15,000 a year. You know what I said? Sign me up, coach. So I go do a program for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. They're phenomenally pissed off when I show up because I'm not him, but I get ranked first place of all the teachers. So they said, well, send this guy again. He said, you want to do this again? I said, thank you, sir. That's how I got into the executive development business. And I think, advice I have looking back on life is find great mentors and teachers. Mm-hmm. Find great mentors and teachers. And, Paul Hersey had another saying, it's easy to look tall if you stand on the shoulders of giants. I mean, I've been able to work with Peter Drucker, Paul Hersey, Warren Bennis, just Alan Mulally, just a lot of great leaders from various fields. And, it's easy to look smart if you hang around people like that.
Marshall, I can remember some leaders that I had to follow in my life. And when I say had to follow, I mean because I didn't know any better in my life. When I would ask questions, at some point they would say, man, Doug, you ask a lot of questions. And I guess that really has fared well for me as a podcast host. But as a guy in an organization, maybe with the command and control leadership style that they may have had, it might not have been the best
Right.
the best way to approach it. But how often did you ask why along the way? And maybe talk to our listeners that are asking why continually, because I think that's, for me, that's the way to learn.
Well, I'm a big believer in asking the question why. I study life a lot. I've read, as I said, lots of books on Buddhism, philosophy. What are we here for? And so for me, that's just kind of naturally who I am. And my books deal a lot with that as well. So for me, that's just a fun part of life. And to me, it's just, why should you ask the question why? Well, why not ask the question why? We're here. Might as well at least check it out.
I think about all of the wonderful people. I said tongue in cheek a little bit earlier that I set the bar low, but I've set the bar pretty high for our guest seat, and certainly you are one of those that are at the steamed high position. I talk to them about any question that would be in their expertise, and I feel like I'm lucky that I'm actually getting paid in many cases to not bring a message out, but I get paid by sponsors. I get paid by clients that pay for my services. And I keep thinking, who's the lucky one here? I feel so fortunate to be able to get free coaching from a guy like Marshall Goldsmith by sitting in my guest seat. How would you feel as either a podcast host or, in your case, as an executive, as an executive coach, an expert in that space? How does that feel? Because aren't you sometimes getting coaching from your clients and learning from your clients?
Oh, look, you're making a great point. In my coaching for 45 years, I didn't get paid if my clients didn't get better. And better is not judged by me or them, it's judged by everyone around them. So you get paid for results, you learn some humility. The client I coached, I spent the least amount of time actually coaching, although we spent hundreds of hours together, actually coaching, was Alan Mulally, who was head of Boeing Commercial Aircraft at the time, went on to be CEO of Ford. Stock goes from 101 to 1840, and CEO of the Year in the United States, and a 97% approval rating from every employed in union company, unheard of. I mean, the guy wasn't a good leader, ridiculously good leader. So I said to Alan, I made a chart here. And this chart on one dimension says time spent with Marshall Goldsmith, the other dimension called improvement. There seems to be a negative correlation between spending time with me and improving. Now I said, Alan, the way this chart looks, you never met me, you'd have been even better. So I said, Alan, what should I learn about coaching from you? He taught me 2 lessons, which I'm going to share your listeners here. And if they don't learn anything with these lessons, you're going to be a better coach, have a happier life. And Marshall, your biggest challenge as a coach is called customer selection. You work with the right customers. Your coaching process always works. Your wrong customers, coaching never works. And don't make coaching about yourself and your own ego, how smart you think you are. Make it about the great people you coach. That changed my life. I got ranked #1 coach in the world for years. Why? Nobody knows I'm a good coach. I may or may not be a good coach, but I can tell you one thing. I got the #1 clients in the world. And by the way, for everything I've learned from them, everything you learned from me, I learned 10 times from them.
Wow. Wow, what a great lesson to learn as someone that sits at a really nice position with all of the executives that you've had a chance to coach, learning something from them. And Nice Guy community, take a lesson from that. You surround yourself with people that are nickel and diming you and looking at every cent that you spend and moment that you're not putting or putting into their business. They're the challenging ones. It's the ones that pay you exorbitant fees, and they're the ones that basically carry you through the job. They know what they need, and you might just be the catalyst for them and maybe nothing more, and that's totally fine.
Right. About your audience, I was thinking about it before I call. I got one thing in my book called The Earned Life. My most popular book is called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. That book sold a zillion copies. I also wrote a book more recently, though, which was also a New York Times bestseller, called The Earned Life. And I thought about this talk, and one of the things I talk about in that book is called Credibility Must Be Earned Twice. And I think it's very good for your listeners. Now, what I mean by that is part of credibility is being competent. The other part of credibility, though, is being recognized for being competent. They're not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And when we confuse these, we just get in trouble. We mess up our brains. They're two different, totally different issues. Now, for example, writing. I'm an author. On Amazon, 33 million titles. How many do you have to sell in 1 year to be in the top half of all books sold? You know the answer to that question?
No.
It is 2. Half of them sold 0 to 1. Now, I'm not so arrogant to believe that my books are better than 17 million books. Some of them have to be great. Nobody bought them. So one of the problems I see with people that you're listening to you right now is sometimes they what I call undersell. They under-promote themselves, and they have this naive belief that my good work should speak for itself. Have you ever heard that phrase? My good work. That's a nonsense phrase. Your good work isn't going to speak for itself. That's not the way the world works. If that were true, no company would need a marketing function. Now, here's one thing I want to teach your listeners. How many of you listeners out there, Peter Drucker taught me another great lesson. Our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove we're smart and right. Number 2, every decision in life is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Make peace with that, not the smart person, a good person, fair person, right person. And number 3, if I need to influence you and you have the power to make the decision, there's one word to describe you. That word's called customer. One word to describe me, that word's called salesperson. Customers don't have to buy. Salespeople have to sell. Mm-hmm. Such a great lesson. Well, many people in my field, coaching, for example, undersell. And I've got some great coaching for anyone who's in that undersell category. Are you ready? 3 questions. And by the way, for you undersellers, these are going to be painful. Question number 1, would the world be worse off or better off if you became more powerful and influential? As Peter said, we're here to make the world better. Would the world be worse off or better off? Guess what almost everyone says? Better off. Is trying to become more powerful and influential make you feel sometimes uncomfortable. Oh, uncomfortable. Oh, I don't like to do that. I don't feel good. Looks like I'm showing off. It makes me uncomfortable. Ooh. What's more important to you? Making the world a better place or being comfortable?
First one, world a better place.
Guess what then? Get over it. Get over it and quit bragging about it. Quit bragging about it. Quit acting like that's some stupid badge of honor. It's not a badge of honor. It's often a badge of lack of courage.
I think about the people that you've had a chance to coach, the executives that are in those icon positions, and then I say, well, something had to get you there. What inspired you before you started meeting all of the famous people and the people that were in high positions, whether it's marketing or sales or leadership?
Oh, what inspired me was my mentors, Paul Hersey, Peter Drucker, those people, right? They're not playing in the little league; they're playing in the big league.
Take me back to when you were a kid, though. Did you have any?
When I was a kid, are you kidding me? I had no idea of any of this stuff. First 4 years I was in school, we had an outhouse. Yeah, the odds on me writing 4 New York Times bestsellers, I'm not sure I even knew there was a New York Times. So, yeah, was I thinking about? No, I was not thinking about it as a little kid.
My dad used to tell me that selling and leadership are Broadway shows put on by a psychologist. I'm curious. A couple of things. One, before I hit record, you actually sang a little tune for me, which I love that. So I want to hear a little bit about your theater background because I know there is some theatrics that are involved in everything that one must do in business to actually play the role. So curious just about, theatrics, about
Well,
what,
now
yeah.
this is a very important point. One of the things I teach people is how to act. And the greatest leaders I ever met, Francis Hesselbein, former CEO of the Girl Scouts, Peter Drucker said, the greatest leader, my friend Alan Mulally. How many years do I know these people? I know them in decades. How many times have I ever seen be whiny, angry, down? Zero. You know why? Showtime. Now, that's not being a phony, that's being a professional. Now, I'll give you an example. It's hard for me to talk about without crying, but my friend Frances lived to be 107 years old. 107. I saw her when she was on her deathbed and came to say goodbye. And I thought she'd be in a coma, probably not even able to talk to me. And her eyes open up. She said, "Oh, Marshall, it's so great to see you. I love you." And she said, "I just feel great." She's sitting there dying,
Mm.
can't eat, barely can breathe. I feel great. That was her. You know why? She didn't care about herself. She cared about me.
Mm-hmm.
That 20 minutes was for me. It wasn't for her. Well, to me, great leaders, they think that way. It's not for you. Nobody cares. And one thing I was telling you about is people ask me, how do you get so much energy all the time? I'm almost 75. They don't say this, but for an old man, how do you get so much energy all the time? I do a little chant. I mentioned, would you like to learn this chant? Put both feet on the ground,
I'm ready. I'm doing it with you, if that's okay. All
both
right.
feet on the ground. Breathe deep. Ah, do your hands like this. Hands. And the chant goes just like this. Oh, there's no business like no business like no business I know.
All right, let me try it. Let me try it. There's no business like show business like no business I know.
That's
How'd I
right.
do?
It's showtime.
Were you ever involved in community theater or musical theater in college?
Well, it depends how you define theater. I mean, I've given speeches to
That's
probably a
true.
million people around the world. You might say I have been involved in a little bit of theater.
Tell me about, I want to go back to, I'm going to pull your memory just a little bit from your first book that you wrote and published or had published to your most recent, if not the content, but your perspective or your position, book one versus book 50. Tell me the differences for where you were mentally when you put those two books together.
Well, when my first book was an edited book called The Leader of the Future, which I only wrote a small part of the book, and my last book was called, one of my last books called The Earned Life, I'd say I have come to have a greater appreciation of just being human. Over the COVID time, my friend Mark Thompson and I spent 600 hours with 60 amazingly successful people every weekend, and they talk about their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the bios of these people, you think you had everything. You know what you learn? They're just humans, everybody else. Just humans. They got dramas, they got pluses, they got minuses, they got wins and losses. They got, depressed kids, parents with Alzheimer's, divorces, just humans. So one thing I've learned as I've grown a little bit older is we're all just humans here. All just human beings. And there, we have this great myth. It'll all be okay when.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no when. There's only one book that has the same ending and they lived happily ever after. That one's called a fairy tale. So in the real world, every day we start over, make the best of it.
You've accomplished a lot in your life, and you have it feels like you've only just begun this whole not reinvention, but the whole restating of where you want to go with giving the things in your life away. I mean, literally with your AI, Marshall Goldsmith. Give me
Right.
the website again, marshallgoldsmith.ai.
Right. Marshall, go to marshallgoldsmith.ai, ask any question you want, and it doesn't answer a question about politics or finance or physical health. But other than that, just ask it any question, and you'll 75% of the answer is better than would be for me.
with something like your website, technology has changed so many things through the decades. Face-to-face meetings have become Zoom meetings, have become podcast episodes, have become
Right.
YouTube videos. Do you think that we are, as a society or as a community of business people, let's say, are we losing our perspective on what is important? Or do you think we're getting more connections with people because we have an opportunity to see someone? We don't have to get on a plane anymore. We can do it through a Zoom meeting. What do you think the technology has done to the role and the positions that you've been in?
I think you're correct on both counts. On one hand, many people are just losing it. I mean, you got a lot of kids that basically living vicariously through their cell phones. They forgot about having a real life. Not good. The average kid's flunking out of school 55 hours a week on non-academic media. That's a disaster. On the other hand, I'm talking to you right now. Hopefully, we're reaching 1,000 people or thousands of people. I got 1.5 million followers on LinkedIn. Well, it gives me a great opportunity to reach a lot of people I wouldn't have before. So is it good or bad? I'd say it's good and bad, like everything in life.
That is very true. That is very true. You definitely can find pluses and minuses. And I think about the rise of the remote workforce, how much more opportunity there is to spend extra time with your family is the benefit. The downside is you don't have that cooperative agreement sometimes that you would have with in their workplace. Do you think that the remote workforce has helped or hurt corporate world?
Good and bad. Same thing. I mean,
All
there are
right.
obviously advantages to it. Only 15% of the people want to go back to the way things used to be, totally. So most people think the hybrid workforce is the best, where you're at work sometime, but you're not there all the time.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question just about. Yeah, I'm going to try to have you encapsulate as much as you can, or as succinctly as you possibly can. You can use as many words, but I'm just curious what your answer is to this question. If you had to put all of the leadership lessons that you learned on a single page,
Hmm.
which ones would rise to the top and get to that page?
Well, again, I'm not an expert on all elements of leadership. I'm just an expert on leading people. And three things. One, have the courage to look in the mirror, the courage to challenge yourself day after day after day. It's hard. Have the humility to admit you can always improve. Because, as a coach, I can't help perfect people get better. Somebody's
Mm.
perfect, nothing I'm going to do about it. And then finally, have the discipline to do the hard work required to get better. Because, it doesn't happen by itself. It's just day after day after day work. The great leaders I met, they worked harder day after day. They kept trying to get better. Hubert Joly went over, turned around Best Buy. He didn't turn around in one day. He didn't give a motivational speech. It was day after day after day of focus on personal improvement, on corporate improvement. That's what you got to do.
I'm going to change your role for a quick second, and just because I found out some information in this interview that you gave me that I didn't know before, I'm going to take the role of executive coach out of your repertoire. You're no longer able to be an executive coach, but you can, however, replace that with your Buddhist philosophy.
Right.
What's your day look like when you do that?
Well, I've been thinking of myself that way all the time. I'm sort of I'm an old modern day monk, right? Yeah. Actually, my day wouldn't change a whole lot. And my day wouldn't change a whole lot.
I
I'd
love
probably
that.
I'd be talking to you on this little podcast right now.
So take our listeners through just a quick glimpse of what your day looks like from a schedule perspective. What time do you wake up?
It depends on the day. I actually sleep 8 hours every night or more. I like sleeping. Some people say they can sleep 5 hours. That's fine for them. I can't. I like to sleep. I sleep 8 or 9 hours. I usually get up early in the morning. This morning, I get up 5, 6 sometimes. Typical day at home, which I'm not home all the time. I have 11 million frequent flyer miles, so there really isn't a typical day for me. But at home, I am home. I do a lot of these webinars, Zoom calls. I I talk to people, I write stuff, and I'm working on right now my Marshall bot. So what I'm doing is very interesting right now. I am trying to come up with every question I can. By the way, if your viewers have a question for me or listeners, send it to me, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com, and I'll make sure it gets put the answer in MarshallBot if I can figure out how to do it. Well, what I do is if I got a question that's not adequately answered on MarshallBot, I go to Bard, the Google search engine, and I ask the same question, what would Marshall Goldsmith say? And again,
Who answers better, you or the robot?
well, that's a good question. A lot of times it's the robot. And it gives me its interpretation of what I would say. Then I look at it, and the parts I agree with, I keep, and the rest I throw away. And then I feed that to MarshallBot. So I'm using a computer bot to train a computer bot.
I love that. Well, isn't that the definition of learned intelligence, or I can't machine learning? Isn't that the definition of
Yeah,
machine? You're actually teaching the machine to teach the machine.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm kind of the intermediary. And by the way, this stuff is amazing how good it is.
Hey, Marshall, before you go to that great executive coaching spot in the sky, which we hope is 50, 100 years from now, when do you see yourself, or maybe you don't, ever hanging up that hat? Do you think that you'll work until the day that you just collapse, or do you think that you'll?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I'm not going to travel as much. I mean, I'm almost 75, so 11 million frequent flyer miles when you're my age, you got to cut back a little bit on that stuff. So I'm not going to travel as much. Other than that, though, my life isn't going to change. I'm still coaching people. I'm still writing. I'm still working on my, no. I mean, I'll give you a personal example. You
Yeah.
might not know this, but I did not have to be on this podcast right now. Do you know what I am sacrificing to be on this podcast just to make you happy? I'm not playing crappy golf with old men at the country club and discussing chicken salad sandwiches and gallbladder surgery. I am not doing that. I have walked away from that opportunity to be here with you right now.
Well, I personally think that this is the better spot to be. But I remember when Gary Vaynerchuk was sitting in the same spot that you're sitting in several years ago when I interviewed him, he basically said the same thing, except he did it with a slightly different spin. He said, Doug, I could be anywhere else in the world right now other than right here. And I'm not actually sure why I'm here. And that was kind of that's where he left it. It made me feel like, well, now I feel pretty shitty for bringing you this interview. I'm sorry that I'm inconveniencing you by being here and sharing your message.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I appreciate you being here. I know my community does. You were so gracious to lend me your time for this interview. And is there anything that I'm not asking you that would be a good way to close out this episode so that my community knows that I mean serious business? Hell, I had Marshall Goldsmith on my show.
Well, let me give you my best coaching advice for everybody. Is everybody ready? Take a deep breath. Imagine you're 95 years old and you're just getting ready to die. Here comes that last breath. But right before you take the last breath, you're given a beautiful gift, the ability to go back in time. The ability to go back in time and talk to a person who's listening to me right now. The ability to help that person be a better leader, better coach, more important, have a better life. What advice would that wise old you who knows what mattered in life and what didn't, what was important and what wasn't? What advice would that wise old you have for the you that's listening to me right now? Well, whatever you're thinking now, do that. In terms of their performance appraisal, that's the only one that matters. That old person says you did the right thing. Guess what? You did. Person says you made a mistake. Guess what? You did. You don't have to impress anybody else. Some friends of mine interviewed old folks who are dying, get to ask the question, what advice would you have? Personal side, 3 themes. Theme number 1, 3 words. Be happy now. Not next week, not next month, not next year. The Great Western Disease, I'll be happy when? When I get the money, status, BMW, condominium, achievement. When I make that goal, write that book, I'll be happy when. We all got the same win. That old person is win. Learning point from old people, don't get so busy chasing what you don't have, you can't appreciate what you do have. Learning point number 2, friends and family. Never get so busy climbing the ladder of success you forget the people who love you. Very bad idea. And number 3, if you have a dream, go for it. You don't go for it when you're 40, you may not when you're 80. It doesn't have to be a big dream. Maybe it's a small dream. Go to New Zealand, speak Spanish. Other people think a dream's goofy. Who cares? Not their dream, it's your dream. Not their life, it's your life. I had an embarrassing experience a couple of years ago. I was teaching my class and I said, a very large group, go to New Zealand, speak Spanish. Guy raised his hand and said, we're in Spain, you idiot. We all speak Spanish. Business advice isn't much different. Number 1, life is short. Have fun. Have fun. You seem to be having fun. Life is short. Might as well have fun.
I do.
Number 2, do whatever you can do to help people. Now, this theme of being nice, the main reason to help people doesn't have anything to do with money or status or getting ahead. The main reason to help people is the 95-year-old you is going to be proud of you because you did and disappointed if you don't. If you do not think that is true, interview any CEO who has retired. I've interviewed very many. Ask them a question. What are you proud of? No one ever told me how big their office was.
Mm-hmm.
All they ever talked about was the people they helped. And final advice also saying, go for it. World's changing. Do what you think is right. May not win. At least you tried. Old people, we don't regret the risk we take and fail. We regret the risk we failed to take. And finally, what's my mission in life? Very simple little mission. My mission, I hope I help you and maybe a few of the people listening to me have a little better life. So if any of you have a little better life based on this nice podcast, is a good use of my time.
Marshall, I so appreciate that for several reasons. One, you gave me the title for our episode, which is "Be Happy Now," the Dr. Marshall Goldsmith episode. So thank you for sharing that. And again, you have been so generous with your time. I so appreciate your message, how you inspired not only me this has been decades of inspiration that you have provided. I was frankly surprised when your assistant on your team or whoever it was that was gracious enough to respond to me. And not only that, but saying, hey, Marshall would be open to being on your podcast, the ultimate get. So thank you for being humble enough and having the humility to come on my show. I very much appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you very much for inviting me. Life is good.
Nice Guy community, thank you again for tuning in another episode. Thanks for tuning in. All the information that Marshall provided today, including access to his website right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
If you're hearing my voice right now, you obviously enjoy the podcast. So why not help the guys out? Click on the Patreon link in the show notes, and for as little as $2 a month, you can show your support. Or show us whatever you want.